Hey, as y'all are coming in, would be lovely if you would fire into the chat where you're coming in from here. This is my Breck moment here. Good God, oh, I should have left it up. Let's get this under control as people are coming in, they're kind of chiming in where they're coming in from. At some point, I'll get my stylus. What side is that on? We are passionate people, yes. Well, we're artists. We're all passionate people. Uh, I got some amazing stuff to share with y'all today. So my name is Dave Zaboski. Thank you for being here. I am a former animator from Disney Studios. I'll tell you a little bit about that background in a second. I'm the current co-founder of Laetro.com, Laetro. It stands for Maestros of Light. And we are one of the sponsors here at Lightbox and have been putting on some programming here, including we had drawing sessions all week. We did a panel yesterday with some Disney legends. We did one this morning with women in entertainment. And we are a commissions platform for artists by artists. And so our whole mojo is designed to be able to get good artists, good work from all over the world. And so I'm here to share with you some amazing information that has been shared with me that is too good to hoard. And so this talk is about turning thoughts into things. And let me give you a little bit of a background. And again, if I could ask just if you would mute your microphones for the time being. There may come a moment later on if it's not too disruptive that we'll take questions. I figure that I'm going to cover in about 45 minutes everything you need to know about the idea of creativity. I'm going to cover the core key points of creating in about 45 minutes, and it's going to change your life. Anyway, it's changed mine. So I have been drawing all of my life. I picked up a crayon when I was a kid and never put it down. I did in fact get a D+ in high school art, and so one of my senses is that a lot of the best creators in the world have been damaged by art teachers, and so we do our best to stay with it. We're going to talk a little bit about how to build your skills from the inside out in this talk. I'm an art center guy, and when I was at art center, I had an opportunity to get an internship at Disney Feature Animation Studios. And it was kind of a Project Runway sort of internship. They had about 15 people come in, and they had positions for 3 of us. And so it was really competitive. I ended up getting one of the spots. And so I joke, I had to slit a few throats to get it. I did not really actually kill anybody. I've never been convicted. That's a line from Aladdin, if anybody knows. When I got the internship, the first movie I had a chance to work on was Beauty and the Beast. And so I've been an animator on Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Fantasia 2000, Hercules, Tarzan, like all of those movies that are considered the second golden age of animation. And I got to Disney because I could draw, but I did not know that much about animation. And so we had lectures there. We had talks about artist development. And I want to talk a little bit because I know a lot of us here have been damaged by criticisms of our art. And so what I really feel like this talk is going to help you with is that I'm going to share with you stuff that you already know, but the way I'm going to share it is going to create a kind of hurricane lamp around your flame so that you can monitor that flame without somebody else's wind blowing it out. And I see some comments here about people have had a hard time with criticism. We're going to talk more about that as we get into it and how to not just protect yourself, but really create a flame that's unblowoutable. It's a word I just made up. When I got to Disney, I could draw, but I didn't know that much about animation. And there was a talk that was given there that was a talk that was given by James Baxter. And for me, that talk made the difference between being an amateur and being a pro. And that's the talk that I'm going to share with you now, because before I left Disney, I was the one giving that talk to younger artists. And then once I left Disney, and we might talk a little bit about why, but once I left Disney, I started to give that talk to my artists, the people that were in my circle. And then that branched out into a consultancy where that information that I had codified about how to overcome blocks, how to create powerfully from the inside out, was not only valuable for a cadre of artists, but also for a cohort of other creators, that you find in the entertainment industry, in the tech industry. And so I, um, I began a consultancy called the Alchemy of Creativity, where I was consulting with companies like Google and YouTube and the Royal Bank of Canada and other entrepreneurial teams. I worked with Singularity University, Peter Diamandis. I shared a stage with Ray Kurzweil from Google. I traveled the world sharing this information about how we creators create. And I think what's so exciting for me is that I do this talk for tech industry. I do this talk for, I've got two of them coming up for Google. I'm doing a talk at JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, in October. Um, but you all are creators. Like, you are my people. This is my world, and this is meant for you. And so that's what I'm really excited about. Is this is the kind of stuff that this is the talk that I was given, that I want to share with you about how to create at the level of your imagination. And so this is the entry level of it. This stuff is going to go down all the way. These are things that you're going to be able to fold into your work for the rest of your lives. Like this, there's no bottom to this, which is one of the things that I like about this career. And so, why don't I stop talking about what it all is and let's get into it, shall we? So I'm going to share my screen here, and I want to talk with you a little bit about how we create. Hang on, let me get this stuff over here. Right, share this over here and share that. And now, in principle, y'all should be seeing the creative keys. Is that correct? I mean, this is like, now we're in this world where one of the things that we always say is, can you see my screen? So, awesome. All right. So, it kind of goes like this. Like, we're going to talk today about the creative keys. These are keys that are part of how you cultivate practices for mastery. When I got to Disney, we talked about the principles of the animator, but not just the principles of the principles of animation, right? We talked about the principles of animation, like squash and stretch and silhouette and charm, things that are in chapter 3 of The Illusion of Life, the book by Frank and Ollie. If you want to learn about animation, go to chapter 3 in The Illusion of Life, and there are the 12 principles of animation. But what's not in that book, and what's more important for me, is the principles of the animator. It's not just how to make stuff, but it's how to make the maker. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so it starts like this. Like, when we get started, we're going to start with this thought down here, right? And so we have some thought that we have in the world, a thing that we want to bring into reality. And then we know that somewhere out there, there's going to be this thing, that out there in the world somewhere, there's going to be a thing that we say that we've made. And then our job is to just track this path to make this thing out there in the world, right? I'm going to make that line a little cleaner. Let me also share with you one of the miracles of our time. Now, people don't think there are miracles anymore, but I'm going to share with you there are miracles. It's called Control Z. Right? All right, so here's the other thing too. One of the challenges too that I find that's really interesting is, there's like, I don't know, there's 300 people on this call right now, and I can see a couple of you, and I'm in this room with my friend Idana over here, and my dog and my rabbit, and I can't really hear the reactions and stuff. So if every once in a while you just wave your hands and smile or something like that, it'd be nice, so I know that you're out there. Yeah, thanks, Cicely. That's awesome. Crumb, because I'm pretty funny. I'm a dad. I've been giving dad jokes for 20 years, and now nobody laughs. You make a joke, you're in your room by yourself, you finish a talk for 500 people, and you hit end meeting, and then you're by yourself in your room again. It's kind of a weird environment. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is how to less weirden this environment by collaborating and working together. But let's go back to this. A thought turns into a thing. We think that this is the trajectory that we're going to have, and this thought turning into a thing. And then we get started. And what happens? Life happens. And we get over here, and the pizza man shows up, and you have to pay him in dimes. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm off track. And then you fire over to get back on track, and you're over here. And then your mom calls and she says, why don't you ever call me anymore? You know, and it's like, oh man, yeah, I'm so busy on stuff, right? And then you get back on track and you end up creating in this zigzag path that looks more like this than the one that you planned on to start with, right? Does that sound a little familiar for us? For me, this is how I created. Thanks for the thumbs up out there. This is how I created, and I got good accidentally. And I think all of us are kind of in the same place. Like, we got good by accident. Is there a way for us to be more intentional about the cultivation of practices for mastery? And so that was the talk that we had at Disney. It's the one that I shared, and it's what we're talking about right now. So the challenge that we face is this gap right here. This gap is the gap that creators fall into, that place where we said, I'm not good enough, or I ended before my intention was fulfilled. You know, we run out of time and money and enthusiasm and maybe some friends in the process, right? And so how do we land on that thing the way we said we wanted it to be? And so at Disney, we had this conversation all the time, and we diagrammed it this way. Like, imagine you have a place like Disney that has decades of incredible creators tinkering on this process every single day, and here's where we landed. And so if you didn't think about your creativity that way, could you think about it differently? Could you think about your creative process the same way the universe does? Could you imagine the context for how you create more holistically, more like, you know, there are energies that pull even the sun through the infinite reaches of space. There are energies that drag impossibly small particles into the densities of the earth without even touching it. Energies that cause a rose to bloom or a cactus to grow. Could you imagine a different context than this meandering path like a moth that hit a flame? Could you imagine your creations differently? And if you did, and started with your thought down here and your thing here, and you went at it in a whole new way, you might think about your creative process more like this. Now that's how the universe do. And when I saw James Baxter first put that thing down like that, I was like, oh, wait a second. There's another way to think about my creativity. And I started to imagine this as a creator's map in a way to map my trajectory from thought into things so that I could home in on that thing that I was creating. And so when I started to think about it in these terms, I started to understand that there were categories of places that we would need to cultivate practices. So when I think about it, I start with a thought and I move to a thing. What's the first thing that I need to know in order to get onto this, you know, yellow brick, maybe it's a green brick road now, but this yellow brick road that leads me to my idea fulfilled in the world? The first thing that I need, and this is where we come in, that creators, they need these things. So creators, the first thing I need to do, and you guys already know this, is I need to believe. I need to believe that this thing is possible. I need to understand that it is not outside of possibility. I need to grasp the power of belief. And I will tell you right now, and I just wrote this paper for JPL, belief is everything, right? Like, we humans in 100 million species over 100 million years are the first to codify the power of belief. The idea that we can believe something and then make it so. Now, you are surrounded in your studio by this very fact, that the belief of somebody creating a microphone, creating a screen, creating an implement that can make marks, that phase up ideas into things, like all of that is structured by people believing it so. Now, I heard the philosopher Stephen West talk about this and explain it super clearly. Let's say, imagine that you're being chased by a bear, and this bear is going to eat you and kill you. But you can jump over a 6-foot chasm, and by jumping over this 6-foot chasm, you will save your life. Now, if you didn't believe it was possible, you wouldn't try, and then it would be a bad day for you. Maybe not such a bad day for the bear, but it'd be a bad day for you, right? If you didn't believe that you could do it, you wouldn't try, and it would never be possible. if you believed it was possible and the outcome was a positive outcome, then that outcome was only possible because belief was present. So imagine the power of belief is that we humans have the opportunity to turn potential into possible. And we only can do that through belief. And so, how do we find practices for belief? The best practice in the world for belief is story. Now, we artists, we're storytellers. It's why I love talking to this crowd, is because we tell stories. That gift, that power of storytelling, it goes back in history. Like, the storytellers were the wisdom keepers. And if you think about it, like, we humans, this amazing propensity we have is that we codify information. When we share information with each other, that information becomes knowledge. As that information extends past the lifespan of a single person, that knowledge then becomes wisdom. That wisdom gets codified into storytelling, and that storytelling, man, is how all of this mishigas, this craziness has been developed, right? And so we are the storytellers. I would venture to say that most of us are artists, not because we like necessarily the making marks, but the making marks allows for us to tell our stories. So that, to me, is the first and primary power we have as creators, is that we tell stories. And so the practice of storytelling is one of the key places where we can learn to empower our skills, abilities, talents, and internal wisdom and soul. And so, I think what I'm saying about all of this is this is kind of the place now that you can start to cultivate. Now, you know now that belief is a power and storytelling is one of the tools. What are the other tools? Those tools are up to you to figure out. I mean, you can think about them like, I mean, it's how all the cartoons were created, right? You know, there are a lot of tools that we can use to get people to believe. Some of them are more nefarious than others. We as artists, we want to know what these tools are so that we can use them for for good. So, storytelling, the power of storytelling. The next thing we have to do is that building that skill of storytelling, it doesn't happen right away. So the next thing that creators have to cultivate practices for is that creators, well, we iterate. We unfold our creativity in passes. We know that maybe the first line that I make is not the last line. Let me demonstrate this for you. I'm going to show you, like, I'll do a little drawing for you. So let's say I'm going to do a drawing here. I'm going to do maybe I'm going to do an anime character. All right, so here's my first pass on this. Okay, let's make big hair here. Sort of offset shoulders. I don't know, something else is going down here. So I'm just figuring something out. This is my first pass on this. Let's put an ear in there. All right. Now, these are passes. This spiral is practically a map for the creative process. Here's a pass, and then here's a pass, and then the next pass. And each pass, you know, is going to allow you to get closer and closer to that thing that you imagined. Now, we look at this and we go, oh my God, I thought Dave was an animator. You know, because I know I can draw, because I know that passes will take me someplace, that I don't worry about my first marks. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I can come in on my second one, right? Let's say I'll do 3 passes on this. So here's my second pass now. Let me get over here, right? So here's my second pass. I'm going to come in and I might maybe add a little structure. I'll still stay pretty slow, or pretty loose over here. Okay, I might start to maybe put in a little shadow shapes here. Let's say there's some light on the cheek in here. That's there. There's cast shadow here. You know, this goes like this. Here's the hair. Let's loop it like that. All right, so something like that. Here's my second pass. Okay. He's holding a staff over here and his arm is out. I don't know. We'll figure that one out, right? All right, so second pass. Then I'm going to come in. I'm going to knock that one back a little bit. All right. All right, now I want to skip a couple steps. Let's say I'm on my 10th pass right now. So on this pass, I'm going to start to come in Let's see, I'm going to come a little bit darker over here. So knowing that I can iterate on this stuff, I'm going to be able to um, to use my passes to get myself closer and closer to where I'm going. And I don't have to, like, I know that I'm going to keep the lines that make me better at what I do and not the ones that make me worse. And so I can start to refine this in ways that um, that keep what worked, eliminate what didn't, and let's see, I have a little jaunty smile out here, a little shadow shape here. A nice jawline in there. Some shadows here. So he's going to have like cast shadow here. This is a little softer over here. Maybe a little bit of light on the cheek in there. So knowing that I can just do this in multiple passes, you know, if I were to do this as, you know, uh, like I might be able to do in, you know, 10 or 20 passes. I don't know how many does it take, right? Like how much does it take? I did a scene in on Pocahontas where John Smith just hears Pocahontas say, "My name is Pocahontas," for the first time. And he looks at her and he goes, "What? What did you say?" I think I did that scene. I think I did that scene 24 different times. Like I just kept trying to get that scene right, and it was really challenging. John Pomeroy, my mentor at the time, said, "You know what? If you don't want to do it right, just turn it in, and that'll be fine. But then imagine your drawings shown in front of millions of people all over the world, blown up 100 times forever." And then you think, "Wow, man, this is my art. This is what I want to be putting into the world, and so I better take it a little bit more seriously." He also said, "Also remember that you got to do the best you can do today." Like you can be intimidated by that stuff, but do the best you can do today, and then make a commitment that tomorrow you will also live in that same place. That you'll do the best you can tomorrow, right? So, right. So I've skipped a few steps jumping forward on this, but the idea is that I can, you know, maybe I'll put that shoulder up, right? Um, and I know I'm going to get to that somehow. It's going to, you know, right? So iteration, right? Allow yourself to have passes on something, to understand that you can improve stuff, that you want to know what is a pass. And the more clarity you get on what's a pass, then the more you can understand like how to keep moving and get better at what you do. Um, uh, a lot of times my process is I'll do something, I'll evaluate, I'll take notes. I might have 21 different things that say, here's what you need to do on the next pass, and then I dive into the next pass. Instead of trying to fix every little thing that I see is broken, I just understand that I'm going to catch all of those on the next pass, and then I'm going to step back. You know, you often see, you know, artists, you step forward, you make a mark, you step back. That's also a pass. So it's a micro and a macro. There's a breathing in and a breathing out. Um, so creators, we iterate, right? We understand that there are phases or passes. And you allow for, you know, that's what this spiral is all about. You allow the idea to unfold in its natural way. All right, then the next thing is the creators wait, that's not it. I hit the wrong button. Creators, we'll get there. Creators collaborate. Creators understand how to collaborate. Now, no big idea can be done by yourself. You know, we get taught sometimes in art school that you're the one, especially in my art school at Art Center. It was very much like you are the one, you got to get this. But then you get into an environment like Disney or these other studios and you realize that it's super collaborative. We did a panel yesterday on just this topic, and hearing Andreas Deja talk about how he had Eric Goldberg help plus him on a scene that needed more comedy. Hearing stories from Don Hahn about how Elton John got plussed by Hans Zimmer on Lion King and how to make the music sound more African. Like that plussing, it goes all the way up. We realized at Disney that we had to be additive to each other, that we use this miraculous instrument that tracks not just production efficiencies. Like, you don't just have to have stuff done on time and on budget, but it has to have heart and spirit and, you know, dare I say it, love. And let me offer this to you all, if you think that maybe that's not exactly part of it. Every master of every discipline that has ever lived on this earth, everyone who has ever been great at what they do, whether it's marksmanship or swordplay or artistry or marketing or dance, every master has done it because they've had a love for what they were going into. And so that has got to be a part of it. Now, it becomes challenging in an environment that's not additive. If there's no, you know, like, you can't tell an artist that they suck and get good work out of them. And so, how do we collaborate powerfully? And Walt Disney himself had the term plussing. We plus each other. To plus each other is to be in service to the trajectory of an idea, not the ego that brought it. So when we plus each other, we have a trajectory conversation. Somebody might come to me and they'll say, hey, Dave, can you plus this? And we use this term all the time here at Laetro. We used it all the time at Disney. I saw plussing break at Disney. It's a story for another time. To plus something is to get its trajectory as if the idea was a creature. Could we imagine this idea wanting to have its full expression in the world? Now, there are bad ideas. There are ideas that, you know, you get to a place and go, this is not going to work. But you got to give it its chance to breathe life into it. We animated. We animated life into things. So the idea of plussing, somebody comes to me and says, hey, can you plus this? I would say, all right, well, what have you tried? Where is it coming from? Where is it going? Where is it now? And how can I help? And so that way, I'm coming in not as like a boss or as an authority. I'm coming in because of my experience. You're asking somebody to plus something because of their experience, not because they think it should be more green because they like green. And so that helps the plusser also to be skilled and get better at what they do. To collaborate in a way where we plus each other, man, that's a cultural conversation. That's not just a couple people working together. That's how you build a culture. That's how you rise together. We learned at Disney that the fastest accelerant to being great at something was generous collaboration. And I want to repeat that. The fastest accelerant to your greatness is generous collaboration. Like, learn how to play nice. Learn how to share and be shared with. And, you know, that's our motto at Laetro. At Laetro, our motto is we rise together. Like, you cannot believe the power of amazing artists coming together to create things by plussing each other, by listening carefully. So these are practices. So some of the practices you can hear, you know, like, you start to cultivate them. For example, I heard somebody ask Meryl Streep, the actress, what she thought the most important thing about her job was. Now, you may or may not like Meryl Streep, but she's got like 19 Academy Award nominations, man. You cannot deny her mastery in her field. And so somebody said, hey, what's the most important thing for you as an actress, as an actor? And she said, listening. Wow, all right. That's awesome. So now my job is to figure out, what does she mean by that? You know, I see in the comments, like, is plussing a positive critique? No, it's not. But it's a yes and critique. So what happens in plussing is somebody offers something and you say, yes, I acknowledge that contribution. And does that contribution fit this trajectory? Let's have a conversation about that. And then we can both sort of say, hey man, that conversation, that contribution, it doesn't really fit the trajectory. Like, that contribution is not going to land us where we want to go. And so when we can come to a consensus on that, then people who bring the idea, they're down with the shift. I'm seeing people having trouble hearing. Is that the case? Most people, it seems like most people can hear. You might just check your settings, and yeah, there's sound. Okay, good. Um, there are practices for plussing. Yes, and is one of those practices. To plus somebody, to be additive is a thing. When what we do at Laetro is we don't say, hey, this was Brett's idea or Matt's idea. We always say idea one. All right, here's idea one. And then everybody contributes to idea one to make idea one the best idea. And then somebody goes, hey, I got another one. How about this? And then we go, okay, cool, idea two. And then we all pile on into idea two to make idea two the best idea possible. We get 3 or 4 ideas. We look at them. Nobody owns the idea. In fact, we often joke, like, we're super clear. Brett came up with something amazing. And Brett will say, God, you know, I'm going back on Dave's idea. Because everybody knows that wherever the idea came from, it had some source somewhere that you could never really fully track as just yours. And so, you know, I think when you see the best creators, they collaborate generously, and that's how they rise. And so, looking for practices to plus each other, it's incredibly powerful. The next thing is that along with how we plus each other is that we have to learn how to risk. Because we use this remarkable tool that has both production efficiencies in our capacity to our skill sets to be able to manipulate matter into what we think should be neat, we also have this heart and soul and spirit. And when we risk, what we do is we actually invite a data collection that's much richer than just a pedestrian path towards something. When we have to leap over that 6-foot chasm and we make it, we learn a bunch of things like, you know, don't poke the bear, right? And so how we risk, how we learn to risk, is we do it in increments. We start small with risk. And I think that you can even feel this in your own work. Like sometimes I work in pencil and I do a lot of stuff in pencil and then I move on to a pen. Or sometimes I work in pen because the pen is super risky and I take chances on that stroke. And then I move to pencil and oh my God, it's so nice, right? That's what I'm saying about the undo button. The miracle of our time is undo. If you also use it judiciously, then it allows for you to learn. Like I made a mark. Hey man, I didn't like that mark. Let's make it go away. Now I can make a better mark. And so in the micro, we artists have this opportunity daily to practice risk, to take a chance on our drawings, you know, to go to drawing classes, to go to live model drawing classes. We're going to be offering some weekly at Laetro, so stay tuned on that. Opportunities to have this micro risk and then build out from there. So then it turns into a paintbrush where you're throwing stuff down. I saw a film of Sorolla. I mentioned this in the last class. If you don't know Joaquin Sorolla, look him up. We're probably happy that he's passed away, so he's not getting any better, because dang, that guy's good. I saw a film of him take 3 colors off of his palette on one single brush and hit a stroke that made a grape that felt like you could feel the juice inside of that grape being lit by the morning sun. Oh my God, it pissed me off. It was so gorgeous, right? You don't get that way unless you take risks. They used to say that Sorolla painted like a pig eats. Like he would just throw down stuff. And you know, there's a photo of him painting a 4-foot by 5-foot painting on the beach in plein air of a horse. Man, I paint 8x10s in plein air because it's hard to paint a big painting in outside. So, you know, this guy's taking chances, and those chances are paying off. And so as we risk, we learn to trust. We learn to trust ourselves. We learn to trust others. You take incremental, Joaquin Sorolla, great, thank you. We learn to trust others as well by incremental risk, and we build a team that understands the power of story, that we tell a story that's bigger than any of the egos involved. We understand that we all iterate, so that somebody might show something and they say, hey, this is my first pass on it. And so we're like, all right, cool, that's your first pass, knock yourself out. Here's a couple of my notes, let me know what your second pass looks like, right? we understand how to collaborate, that we're yes-anding each other, that we're supporting the additive potential of the trajectory of this idea, with the caveat that that idea may not land where we want it to land, so it's okay to pull it. I'm sure all of you have seen If I Never Knew You from Pocahontas, like the spectacular scene of John Smith and Pocahontas done by Glenn and John, the two top animators, in this 180-degree spin around them, almost made it into color. We had to pull it from the film because we just didn't have the time and budget for it. And so, you know, in the movie business, it's called a good lift. Can you remove something you love and then still love the thing more? And so, so we understand the plussing and the trajectory of ideas, and then when it comes to a risk, we all know how to leap together because we've built this culture. And that leads us to the last thing, which I showed you a minute ago, and that is the creators complete. Now, creators, we finish strong. Right? We complete something, and I would argue, and you can test this statement, that our lives are a compilation of the stories we tell ourselves of the things that we've completed and the things that we haven't completed, right? Like we tell our stories of I'm not good enough. We tell ourselves stories about the relationship that didn't work, and now I don't want to have kids or get into a relationship or do this or try to send my portfolio out. The things that are incomplete are as powerful for us as the things that we complete. And when we find practices for completion, that leads us all the way back up to believing more and more in what it is that we do. So this becomes almost like a circuit. When you can finish strong, when you can complete something powerfully, then that helps you believe in the story that you're telling. There are practices for completion. So this is, like I say, an introduction. These practices, they go all the way down. Like you can find practices for completion as an artist. You can find practices for completion as a human. Like, my dad's dead. He passed away. There were conversations I wanted to have with him that I didn't get a chance to have. But I can have those conversations and declare those conversations complete, even with people who are not here anymore. We can find practices that allow us to be complete in every moment. And why I say these practices go all the way down, it's because if you think about it, there are enlightened masters out there, people of deep and abiding spirit who walk through space and every moment for them is complete. Like every breath is complete, every statement, every step they take is complete because of their practices. And so, and even in that, they say first the dishes, then enlightenment, then the dishes, right? So, so these are the 5 creative keys that I wanted to share with you. Why? I'm an evangelist for this stuff because every great crisis this earth has ever known, every challenge humans and non-humans alike have faced, has been solved by profound acts of creativity. If you think about even before we got here, the mitochondria in the cell of every living thing has a different DNA than the cell does. It came from a different place. This was a collaboration that happened long before we got here, where the mitochondria said to the cell, hey man, what do you think? Maybe we should get together, and if we do, I'll be the powerhouse of the cell. You can live a little bit longer. You can divide, differentiate into some things like a liver or a finger or a wing, and then maybe in a few 100 million years, we can have all of this craziness surrounding us, right? Like these collaborations have happened in places where we don't even notice them. You know, an algae bloom causes the water to evaporate, creates clouds that bring rain, that cool the oceans. These are collaborations that happen. These are intelligent systems of synergy that are built into our very bodies. And so, so the crises that we face today, the challenges that we face, not just in the animation industry, but in the world in general, because the stories that are being told can be damaging. They can be positive. They can be uplifting. What story are you going to tell with the power that you have? You are the creators. It's why I'm so excited to talk to this cohort. You have the power to tell incredible stories, to change the world. You know, I talked to these guys at JPL. Man, they threw a rock into space and they landed it safely on the planet Mars. And we can listen to what's going on on Mars. Why? Because those mother lovers believed it was possible, right? Now, if you don't believe a story can change the world, well, my friends, you're just going to have to take my word for it.